to our speaker, Barbara Hebert, who is the president of the Theosophical Society in America. And she's newly elected in her first year and doing a wonderful job. As you know, let me see a little bit about Barbara. She is the director of the University Counseling Center at Southeastern Louisiana.
I was.
She was. And is a licensed professional counselor. And she is a third-generation Theosophist and has served in local, regional, and national offices throughout her 36 years of membership in the Theosophical Society of America. She currently serves as president of the board of directors. So I have the pleasure of working with her also, as I'm on that board also. And this evening, Barb is going to speak on practical spirituality. So I think that's something that we can all benefit from, practical spirituality. And we like to start our programs, Barb, with reciting the Golden Stairs together. And then we will end with On the Other Side of the Old Hidden Life by Annie Besant. So let's recite together the Golden Stairs. A clean life, an open mind, a pure heart, an eager intellect, an unveiled spiritual perception, a brotherliness for all, a readiness to give and receive advice and instruction, a courageous endurance of personal injustice, a brave declaration of principles, a valiant defense of those who are unjustly attacked, and a constant eye to the ideal of human progression and perfection, which the sacred science depicts. These are the golden stairs, up the steps of which the learner may climb to the temple of divine wisdom. And Barbara, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. We need to update my bio. So, plus, at this point, it's been more than 36 years. But I might not say how much.
Well, we'll be sure to update that.
We'll do it, yeah. It's been more than 36 years. Thank you guys for having me here. I really appreciate it, and I'm delighted to be here with all of you. So I bring you greetings from our national headquarters, which is called Alcott, in honor of our president-founder, Colonel Alcott, and located in Wheaton, Illinois, about an hour and a half south of here. I also bring you greetings from our international headquarters in Adyar in Chennai, India. I spoke with Nancy Seacrest, who is the international treasurer this morning. We Skyped. So she knew I was coming up here, and she said, pleased to give you her greetings. She's originally from Detroit, and I think spent many years in Portland, and is now dealing with the warmth of southern India. I think it's hot. So thank you all for having me here. I am a seeker like everyone else. I'm not here because I have any answers. I wish I did. If I had answers, I would gladly share them with you and with everyone. But like you, I'm a seeker. And I seriously doubt that anything I'm going to say tonight is anything that you don't know, but maybe it will be in different words. So that's why I'm here. Okay, that's not going to work. Let's see. There. So I'm going to tell you a quick story. I'm not sure that you can see that picture so well. That's a picture of my copy of At the Feet of the Master. It belonged to my grandmother. I looked to see the publication date, but there wasn't a publication date in it. This is what the newer versions look like. I like mine better.
Mm-hmm. That's nice. Yeah.
So I have my granddaughter is she's 5.5 now, but when she was 4, she was spending the night at my house, and I keep a copy of At the Feet of the Master on my bedside table. because I periodically just wake up in the middle of the night sometimes and am awake for an hour or so. So sometimes if I read, it helps me go back to sleep. Not that theosophical books always put you to sleep. Some do. But anyway, so this copy was on my bedside table, and my granddaughter's being raised in a more traditional Christian household. And so she said, "May, is that your Bible?" And I thought, well, kind of. And so she was happy with that. That's all she needed. It obviously looked like a sacred book to her, so she was good with that. You know, and I thought about it. The Bible provides direction for many Christians, and At the Feet of the Master also provides directions. I particularly like this book because it is something that someone who has never heard or thought of the perennial wisdom can sit down and read and grasp. And someone who has studied for 50 years can sit down and read and find something new and different. So it's a book with many levels, many layers. I'm going to change some words in it, though, I have to tell you. Not officially, but unofficially here tonight. C.W. Leadbeater, in Talks on the Path of Occultism, about At the Feet of the Master, said, "Theosophy is a life to be lived, not merely a system to be learned." So if we're not being practical with this, if we're not putting it into our daily lives, it's a waste of time. Well, maybe not 100% waste of time. But so we've learned a system, big deal. What does that do to help us? So what does it mean to walk this spiritual path? To me, I'm sure if we went around the room, we'd have a different answer for everybody, or a couple of different answers for everybody. But for me, walking the spiritual path means living a life that facilitates the transformation of consciousness. I want to transform my consciousness. When I do that, eventually, I'm doing it hopefully little by little, and when I ultimately do it, and every little bit that I do, it transforms the consciousness of those around me. Because if we believe, as the perennial wisdom teaches, that we're all one, then if this part of the whole moves forward a teeny tiny bit, then the whole has to move as well. So when we transform our consciousness, we're transforming the consciousness of the world. And I don't know about you, but the world is in sad need of having its consciousness transformed. So that's my perspective. As you may know, this little book was written by Krishnamurti when he was a boy. Krishnamurti, a teacher in the perennial wisdom, affiliated in his younger years with the Theosophical Society and later on his own. An incredible teacher. He wrote this when he was a boy. So when we picked the book up, I didn't bring my blue and gold copy. When we picked the book up, oh, I could never read this. Look how little that writing is. I need my magnifying glasses. Not even my bifocals will do it with this one. But when we pick this book up and read it, okay, I think that for some of us it might be a little off-putting, some of the language. Because it was written in 1910 by a boy who was of the Indian culture. So the things that are written in here, there are a lot of musts and shoulds and oughts and all of those things that in today's world, I think we try to stay away from as much as possible. So I guess what I'm saying to you is that if and when you pick this book up, okay, take into account that cultural difference, the difference, I mean, over a century ago, and read it with that awareness. Qualifications. The book talks about qualifications for walking the spiritual path. It gives us 4. And I don't think you can probably see that very well, can you? Is it hard to know? Okay. You need a magnifying glass to see it too. Well, they're pretty pictures, and even if you can't make out the words, at least it's bright colored, so you might not fall asleep. Qualifications are the qualities or accomplishments that help us, equip us to be able to accomplish some task, to do a job, that sort of thing. So in essence, what the book is talking about are the qualities, the characteristics, the personal traits that facilitate our spiritual journeys. That's what the book is talking about. They're not steps or stages. It's not like first you do this one and then you do this one. Hopefully we're working on them all together, all at the same time. Life is never quite that compartmentalized. The qualifications as listed in the book are discrimination, desirelessness, good conduct, and love. And I'm going to rename almost all of them, at least for us tonight. Bring those words into the 21st century. So I would call them discernment, indifference to the result of our actions, altruistic living, and love that encompasses all of humanity. So discernment, it's the first one. The first qualification, discrimination, discernment. A century ago, discrimination meant something very different than it does today, clearly. It meant distinguishing between things. Well, so does discernment. But today, discrimination means, bias against other people, which is absolutely the opposite of what the Theosophical Society stands for. So we don't discriminate against other people. And so I think that term, if I picked this book up and didn't know anything about it and it started talking about discrimination first off, I'd be like, who are these crazy people? Okay. So discernment to me is a better word. And we're taught, and it talks about, we're told, that our goal is to discern between the real and the unreal. That's the first thing that we're taught, or we're encouraged to do. So, on the spiritual path, we need to discern all aspects of our life. We need to be thinking about, see, I'm doing that need. That's kind of like ought and should. It is useful to look at all aspects of our life, using all of our senses, including our intuition. We don't want to throw that one out ever. To distinguish between things, especially from a spiritual perspective. First off, of course, as I mentioned, is distinguishing between the real and the unreal. What is unreal? Well, this is unreal. This is unreal. The life that we live, all of us sitting here, this is not really real. Feels real. Probably if I leaned out and pinched Kathleen, she'd squeal because, I'd pinch her. That feels very real. But it's our illusion. It's our perspective that it's real. The real is the unity of all. Come on in.
Come on in.
You're good. Come on in.
Oh, wow.
It's me.
Oh. All right. Okay. So while we live in this world, so anyway, in this world, we look around ourselves, we see different people, we see houses, we see all sorts of things that are different, don't we? Things that are separate from ourselves. But in reality, real, with a capital R, we're all one. There is no separation. There is no division. There's no me and you, them and us, the building and the chair. We're all one. We're all one. We see this top part of the iceberg. That's reality to us. That's what we see, is this little piece up here. And yet the reality is the whole thing. And there's so much more to be seen underneath. Reality, or the real, from this perspective, is what many people call God, or God consciousness, or the absolute, or ultimate reality. There's many names for it, probably as there are people, but it doesn't matter because it's that ultimate. And we are all one in that ultimate. There is no division. There is no separation. We're all one. Okay, so, right, we said practical. I like to be practical. You know, I live in this world just like you guys do. I have to take care of my car. I still have to sweep the floor. Wish I didn't, but I still do. I have to wash clothes, you know, all that sort of stuff. So practical. Discerning the real from the unreal. What does that really mean to us on a daily basis? If we think, and I don't think anybody in this room does, but if we did, if we think that everything in this physical world is reality, what does that set us up for? What does that set us up for? It puts us in a position of looking out for ourselves only, doesn't it? Because we've got to get ahead of the next guy. We got to make money. We got to have power. We've got to have some control, and preferably some status to go along with it, don't we? I mean, it's a dog-eat-dog world out there. If this is all there is. If this is all there is. It puts us in a world of competition. It starts to divide us. It's you, it's me. And if only one of us are going to get to the end of the road, it better be me, right? Because there's nothing else. That's what it sets us up for. But once we start looking at things in that different way, just reframing it just a little, that instead of being separate and divided, that we're all one, takes all the competition out. Because what each one of us does for the benefit of the all helps us all. There's no competition there. It's all about supporting and doing things together. Yeah, money's nice. We got to pay the bills. Okay. But beyond taking care of ourselves, we don't need to accrue or to acquire those things simply so that we end up with the most toys at the end as we go sliding into the grave, so to speak. Everything changes. It doesn't matter what religious tradition a person comes from. It doesn't matter what their culture is. It doesn't matter what their age is. Whether they're 102 or 22 or 2. Because we're all one. Think about it for a second. If we could live in that state of awareness all the time, what would be different in your life? Would things be different? I think probably for most of us, there would be a difference. Maybe not all the time, but there would be a difference. A little bit more about discernment. This is sort of getting down a little bit more to the nitty-gritty. We're encouraged to discern the difference between right and wrong. What's important and what's not important. What's useful and what's useless. What's true and what's false. What's selfish and what's unselfish. They sound very simple, don't they? And we could do this. I mean, we're adults. We can do this. Well, maybe not. Think about the decisions you've made in the last few days. Were these things something that you thought about when you were making your decisions? I don't know. For me, I was in the grocery store and I thought, oh, I think I want to buy some of that Easter candy. I love Easter candy. I love jelly beans. I really want to buy those jelly beans. Well, that was a decision that I had to make. I'll tell you, I bought the jelly beans. And then I ate them, probably like too fast. But, you know, it's not a big deal. It's not right or wrong. It's not important or unimportant. It might fall into useful or useless. It probably fell more into the useless part. True or false? Is this helpful to me? No, it's not. Selfish or unselfish? Well, probably because I was craving them, I would probably throw that onto the selfish end. But we make these decisions all the time, don't we? They don't have to be major, huge decisions. They can be little decisions as well. I think that probably one of the hardest parts about this, for me anyway, and I think for many of us, is to be vigilantly aware of all of the decisions that I'm making. We make decisions all the time. We make decisions about which way to drive, which streets to take. We make decisions about what to say to people or not to say to people. As we think about these decisions, it's a reminder to me to always try to always be vigilantly aware of the decisions I'm making, and then go back to these questions. I'm sure most of you remember those bracelets that people wore, and probably still do. They say they have the initials WWJD on them. What would Jesus do? I don't really self-identify as what most people would call Christian, so I probably would not be wearing one of these. However, what a great thought. If I have to make a decision, especially something that's more important, to put it out there for some great spiritual teacher, what would that great spiritual teacher do in this situation? It's worth thinking about. It's worth thinking about. Oh, I don't know if you can see the car in that gigantic speed bump. Practically speaking, we're consistently making decisions about our physical body. You know, like that Easter candy stuff. In the little book, Krishnamurti says that our physical body is like a horse, which must be cared for properly and trained. Well, you know, I've always heard that. I'm third generation Theosophist. I've heard it from the time I was little. You're the rider on the horse. You have to control the horse. The body is your physical, the physical body is your horse. You have to learn to control it. And then I thought, you know what? In 1910, when this book was written, most everybody was traveling by horse. It made a whole lot more sense back then to talk about training your horse and being in control of your horse. So then I started thinking about what would be more appropriate for today's world, and I went to the car. Now, someone said, but Barbara, cars don't have a mind of their own. I sometimes think they do, particularly when they quit working, and I don't know what's wrong with them or how to fix them. But if we think about it in terms of our car, do we take care of our cars? Of course we do. That's a stupid question. They cost a lot of money. We need them. Okay? They're valuable for getting us here and there. So when we're driving on the road, we avoid the potholes, don't we? Most of us try to.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yes. It is winter going into spring. Apparently that's an issue. We don't hit speed bumps going 100 miles an hour, do we? Well, hopefully we don't. This car, that's a big speed bump. That's the Easter candy for me, okay, that I drove over, by the way. Again, making decisions about what's really good for us on a very practical physical level. Very practical physical level. The second qualification in the book, or the second quality that we hopefully are acquiring, is called desirelessness. I don't even think I know what that means. I mean, I'm not sure that how we get to a place that we don't desire anything. Well, Annie Besant points to the Sanskrit term, vairagya. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Vairagya. Am I? Does anybody know?
That sounds good, yeah.
Sound works? Okay. Meaning indifference to the result of one's actions. Now that I like. That I like. Indifference to the result of one's actions. So, from this perspective, we do what needs to be done. We serve. We serve others. We help other people. When we are engaged in service, when we do service, when we help other people, we're not stopping to think about ourselves, are we? We're thinking about them and what we're doing. And it doesn't have to be any huge, big thing. Again, yes, sometimes it is. Sometimes there are people who will go out and, and feed the homeless. There are people who will do tremendous service projects. I think of St. Teresa in Calcutta and her work with the AIDS victims. That's huge. But service doesn't have to be huge. Service can be tiny. Service can be smiling at somebody as you're walking down the street. Service can be letting the other car go ahead of you and not trying to beat them to the green light. You don't call them green lights up here, do you? Call them stoplights? Green light, okay. All right. Sorry, I'm from Louisiana. My southern slips out periodically. So it doesn't have to be huge. Service is holding the door open for somebody. Service is saying thank you. When I think about the people who work in retail, my gosh, or the people who work, well, in restaurants, who serve, who bus tables, how often do you think those people are thanked? And yet, they're taking care of us. It's definitely sometimes better than others, but they're still doing it, aren't they? And a smile and a polite thank you. Again, service doesn't have to be feeding the masses. It can be. It can be. If we believe that there's a power in the universe, that there's a plan, that that something is, let me make sure I'm on the right slide. If we believe that there is a power in the universe, that all this is for a reason, if we just believe in the scientific principle that when you put energy in motion, it continues in motion. That's a very simplistic way of talking about Newton's second law of motion, I believe. I'm not a scientist. I'm a counselor. I can talk all day about problems, but barely about science. But if we believe that, then we know that whatever we do is going to have a result. It's going to have a result, no matter what. It has to. It has to. I spent a long time teaching. And the thing that I enjoyed the most, am I going to disrupt the camera if I move a little bit? Okay. I'm going to try not to fall on my face so that you won't laugh. And it's okay if you laugh, I don't care. But I spent a long time teaching graduate level counseling students. I was teaching them how to become counselors. And so as a counselor, and I worked as a counselor for many, many years, one thing that I learned as a counselor and tried very hard to teach the students was that you may never see the results of the counseling. You may never see that. And that's okay, because it's not about you. It's not about you. It's not about you, it's not about me, it's not about those counseling students. The result is not important. all that is important is that we put that energy out there. And then that person takes the energy and does with it what they will. It's up to them. It's not our journey. Does that make sense? It's a hard one to grasp. People want to see the end result. I finally figured out why I love to cut the grass. It's because when it was over, I could see the end result. And I never saw the end result when I was working with people. I enjoyed cutting the grass. It's also why I like knitting, Barbara, because I could see the end result. But I wouldn't do a long knitting project because it drove me crazy. I wanted to see the end result. I needed that. But with other people, working with people, doing service, no, that's not what's important. When we start looking for results, what we're looking for is for us. And that falls into the selfish component. It's not about them at all. It's about us. Sometimes I think, and well, I'll just go for this. For many years, I thought that desirelessness meant getting rid of our feelings. It's not. It's not. We have feelings for a reason. We are spiritual human beings, spiritual beings having a human experience. Spiritual beings having a human experience. And part of this human experience is the emotions that we have. We need those emotions. They teach us. It's not the emotions that are problematic. It's how we react to them. And how our reaction to them impacts the people around us. It's probably too hard to see up here, so I'll read it. This is a quote from Brennan Manning, and it says, "To ignore, repress, or dismiss our feelings is to fail to listen to the stirrings of the spirit within our emotional life." Those feelings are there for a reason, and they're okay. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to be anxious. It's okay to be whatever. That's what we've got. That's part of who we are. And if we repress that, if we push it down, I can almost promise you, and I don't promise much, but almost promise you, that it's coming out. Just like that volcano. And it's probably going to come out at the worst time and place imaginable. So pushing things down doesn't help us. And it's not desirelessness. It has nothing to do with that. Feeling our feelings is very, very important. If somebody that I love dies, I'm going to feel sad. I'm going to feel sad and I'm going to grieve. And probably there's going to be a period of time when I'm angry, and there's going to be, that whole Kubler-Ross, issue of the stages of grief. I'm probably going to feel all of that. I'm going to feel some guilt. I'm going to feel sadness. I'm going to cry. That's human. Now, if I stay that way, I don't know for how long, but if I can't continue to live my life and still grieve, find that balance where I'm allowing my feelings, allowing them, but continuing to live. And sometimes this can wrap us up so that we become so self-involved that we're not seeing anybody outside of ourselves. Have you met anybody like that? I'm sure you have. We all have. As long as I can get out of this long enough to live my life and find that balance, that's healthy. That's learning to work with our emotions, which is a part of this human experience that we're all having. When we get caught up in this and stay there and keep circling and circling, that spills out to other people around us, and so we're impacting them. So you know, sometimes there's a part of me that just wants to be selfish. You know, I just want to sit down on a Saturday morning and drink coffee and watch stupid stuff on Netflix. I don't want to get up and do my chores or work in the yard or whatever. Kind of selfish. Not the end of the world selfish, but, you know. But when I'm doing this, it kind of falls out to other people. And so they're picking up on and being influenced by this self-involved depression, sadness, anger, whatever. That's a problem because we're impacting others. When we are not indifferent to the results of our actions, you know, when we're attached to the results of those actions, then we automatically have expectations for other people, don't we? I mean, I was really nice to you. So aren't you going to be nice to me? No, I gave you a present for your birthday. You're going to give me one for my birthday, right? It's an expectation. We want to see the results of our actions. Okay? Even if I do something nice, I hold the door open for somebody to walk through, and they don't say thank you. Am I upset because they didn't say thank you? Well, yeah, probably sometimes. Okay. It's because I want to see that. So it's about me, again. When we set up expectations for ourselves and others, you know what we get, right? Disappointed. We get disappointed because chances are it's not going to happen. Look at this guy. Now, I thought about this. This is a pilot in an airplane leaning out of the window taking a selfie. And I thought about this because that's what expectations are about. Oh, I didn't spell expectations right. Sorry. They're all about notice me. See how important I am? See how wonderful and special I am? I think this has to be Photoshopped. Because that guy is, if that plane is flying like it looks like it is, he's got to be going 300 or 400 miles an hour, and his hair is not messed up at all. So, I think it's Photoshopped. But it's still, it gets the idea across, right? Notice me. Look at me. It was either that or a picture of a lady not very well clothed. So I thought this was more appropriate. Anyway, we want other people to recognize our brilliance, don't we? So, practically speaking, again, do we think before we speak? I don't. Oh my gosh, my filter is gone. Anybody else lost their filter? Oh yeah. Yeah. I think it happens as we get a little bit older. What are you going to do to me? What are you going to do to me? I'm going to say what I got to say. But we do need to stop and think about what we're saying, don't we? Deciding, and I've heard this since I was a little kid, is what we're going to say, true, kind, and helpful. There's an and in there, not an or. True, kind, and helpful. Or is it really just about being noticed? I got something to say, look at me, look at me. I think my biggest lesson here is as a mother-in-law. I have two wonderful daughters-in-law. If you guys ever see this, I have two wonderful daughters-in-law. No, I really do. And I love them dearly. But as a mother-in-law, okay, sometimes my daughter-in-law does things with my grandchildren, that I don't always agree with. And so then I have to stop and think, am I going to say something? And if I say something, is it true? From my perspective, it is, of course. Is it kind? It might not be. Because she may take it as a real criticism of her and hurt her feelings when that's not what it's meant to be at all. And is it helpful? Chances are she really doesn't want to hear what I have to say. And they are her children after all. Okay? They are her children. They're her dharma, her responsibility. Speaking, giving advice, helping other people with that. You know, we really don't know why another person makes a decision that they make. We're not in their body, we're not in their mind. We haven't walked their journey with them. But I do know that whatever decisions they make, or I believe, I don't know, but I believe that it's their journey. It's not mine. And so my goal, hopefully, is to always remember that my business, my journey is my business. And other people's journey is not. Even when I love them dearly. Silence is golden. The PowerPoint slide says, wise souls speak loudly in silence. I think that when we don't speak as much, when we do, people listen more because it's such a rarity. So the third quality that we're encouraged to learn is altruistic living. I particularly love this slide. We over me. Is there any better way to talk about altruistic living than focusing on the we over the me? We're given 6 specific actions to pay attention to, and of course I'm going to rename them, most of them as well, because that seems to be what I'm doing these days, is renaming things. The first one is about our minds. When we live altruistically, we recognize that we are not our brains, we are not our minds. That's not who we are. Again, we go back to that. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And my human body has a brain and a mind. But we can use our minds to help other people. These are pictures of thought forms from the book by C.W. Leadbeater and Annie Besant. Thoughts are things. Thoughts are things. They impact us and they impact those people around us. This one right here is called explosive anger. And you can just see it, can't you? Have you ever seen somebody when they were really angry and they just kind of explode? That's kind of what it feels like. And that's supposedly the thought form that comes, or something similar. This is just one person's interpretation. Helpful thoughts, okay, outflowing, and on meeting friends. So this whole room is kind of looking like this, I think. There's that thought form around it. We know that our thoughts can impact other people. Did you know that we have approximately 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day? Isn't that crazy? 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day. We aren't even aware of most of them. They just flit through. Just flit through. But they impact us, don't they? They impact us. Our thoughts are things, and they have power, especially when we focus on them a great deal. So the last place I worked was actually not the University Counseling Center. That's why it's really old. I was the executive director at a small nonprofit in South Louisiana, and I loved that job. That job was my heart. That job was my heart. The Theosophical Society is my soul. That's who I am. But that job was my heart and my passion. And I would only have left it to come here. But that was okay because I knew they could hire somebody that could do that work. And they did. Okay, so, okay, is it kind, true, and helpful? No. So I won't say what I was going to say because it probably isn't any of those things. But the gentleman that they hired to take my place would not have been my choice. That's true. I was not appreciative of the way he treated the staff, and there were other issues. And I could feel this anger just building up in me because of what was happening. And I was really angry about it. And I realized, who am I hurting here? What is this really about? What I'm doing is I am sending this poor guy all sorts of negative thoughts and energy. Anger. And it's not doing me any good either, because it's just rolling in my head, just round and around and around. So then I decided, finally, it took me a little while. I wish I was a little quicker on the uptake and would have figured this out sooner. But I started sending thoughts of peace and love. Because if anything's going to change, that's what it's going to be. That's what it's going to take. And to send those thoughts of peace and love. Things have changed a little. We'll see. But it doesn't matter. Again, not attached to the results. Because I did what I felt like was the most appropriate thing to do at that point, was to send those thoughts. If our thoughts focus on helping other people, on helping humanity, you cute little guy, then our actions are going to follow suit. It happens. Okay. There's a big discussion about which comes first. Is it thoughts or feelings or, who knows? But certainly thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are all related. They're all related. When we focus on service to others, when we think about that, then that's where our actions go. That's where our actions go. This doesn't mean that we enable people from not doing their own stuff. Okay? I'm not about enabling people. There's a very real difference and a boundary between helping somebody and enabling. And the only way that I can really describe it or think of describing it is with this cute little guy here. I don't know if you can tell, but he's got something all over his face. He is a mess. And he's very happy about it. So, when my kids were little, they get to be about 4 or 5. They want to start doing things for themselves. And so, my son wants to make his own cereal for breakfast in the morning. I'm okay with that because I'm tired of making breakfast already, and he's only 4. So he gets the cereal out, he pours it in the bowl, and then I see him heading to the refrigerator to get out the gallon of milk, full gallon of milk, and heading to his bowl of cereal for it. Now I can grab him, or across the room, stop him, and say, "Don't do that, you're going to spill it." If I do that, you're going to spill it, and I take it away and I pour it. Guess who never learns to pour milk on cereal? And the 35-year-old man that he is today is still having his wife pour milk on his cereal. No, not really. But that's the whole idea, right? Is that we allow people to learn from their mistakes. We don't enable them. We don't stop them from doing things. Okay? But I can help him, and I can say, "Here, why don't we do that together?" So that I have control, so that probably most of the milk doesn't hit the floor. And if it does, it's okay. We just clean it up. Life is messy sometimes, isn't it? Yeah. And so there's another message, another lesson learned there. Life is messy, we clean it up. But encouraging people to do their work, okay, as opposed to doing it for them, is kind of what we're talking about here. The third qualification is called tolerance. And so once again, I'm going to change the topic and call it mutual respect, or at least respect. Okay? I heard a minister talking once when he was talking about interfaith discussion, and he was talking about an open-minded discussion based on mutual respect and admiration. And he said, "I can't imagine walking up to somebody of another faith and saying, I tolerate you. I mean, really? I never thought about it like that, but how insulting is that? I tolerate you. No. Have respect for somebody else's tradition, for somebody else's culture. Okay? That's what our second object is all about. That's why we're encouraged to study, comparatively study religion, philosophy, and science, so that we can understand or come to the understanding that at the core, at the base of all religions, traditions, philosophies, and ultimately science, they're all saying the same thing. They're all saying the same thing. So yeah, tolerance kind of doesn't get it for me. Cheerfulness doesn't either. You would think, I mean, I'm a pretty happy person most of the time. But this task is to be cheerful. It's really talking about accepting the curveballs that life throws us, the speed bumps, once again, that we hit in life. Because we all have them. I've never met anybody who didn't have difficulties in their life. But how do we react to those difficulties? You know, do we grow a beautiful flower out of the cracks in the cement? You know, or do we just shrivel up and die? I call them opportunities for growth, but I always put it in quotation marks, use the air quotes, because I don't particularly appreciate those opportunities when they come around. But when have you learned the most in your life? When I've learned the most, it's been when difficulties have come up and slapped me in the face. Sometimes harder than others. We all have them, but how do we handle them? That's the bottom line. One-pointedness, and again, focusing, being mindful, living in the moment. When we live and act, think, speak mindfully, focusing on what is in front of us, we're living in the moment. And confidence and trust. So I'm going to play this for you, because I personally am beginning to doubt, have lack of trust in the fact that winter is, whoa Nellies, that winter is really going to be over. I'm from the South. Winter there started 2 months ago. I mean, spring there started 2 months ago. Come on. What we're talking about here is trusting the process. We know this is going to happen, don't we? We trust that it's going to happen. Can you tell? The snow melting and the flowers. We know it's going to happen. We trust it. Do we trust that there's a plan? Because when we trust, we can have confidence that things are going to work out the way they're supposed to. Whether it's the way I want it to work out or not, it's still going to work out the way it's supposed to.
That is so cool.
Isn't that cool?
It's nice, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can watch that for hours.
I know. It's really neat. YouTube. I'm all about YouTube. They're just so beautiful. But it happens. And it's so amazing. I'm sorry, I'm going to be bad and keep going, because if I run out of time, you guys might not let me come back. If I go over my, or maybe I'm not, let's see. Come on. At least y'all are all enjoying this while I'm trying to make it do what it's supposed to do. It's going to be over in seconds anyway. Okay, we'll just watch it. I trust that it will be over momentarily there. And again, finally, love. And I had to use the we over me again, because that's what this last qualification is. It's love for all. The book says, and there's just no better way to say it, of all the qualifications, love is the most important. For if it is strong enough in us, it forces us to acquire all the rest. And all the rest without it would never be sufficient. When we love the we over the me, That's what pushes us to acquire these qualities and characteristics, which makes us practically spiritual every day as much as possible. So specifically, that love is ahimsa, no harm to any living being, and always watching for an opportunity to help. If you can see, they're giving the dog water in their hands from the water bottle. And the baby is touching the earth, which we're doing great harm to. So putting it all together, and I'm sure you can't see this because it's way too little. Over here are the things that we've just talked about. And what they equate to are will, wisdom, and love. That's what we get from these qualities. Will, wisdom, and love. So in this lower square are the four qualities: discernment, indifference to results, altruism, or altruistic living, and love. And that takes us to the higher triangle of love, will, and wisdom, which is our higher self, the spiritual being in this human experience. So, anyway, and there we are. That is, I'd like to end with a good quote, but I just don't think I can end with something more beautiful than the square and the triangle. Any thoughts, comments? I don't do questions very well because that implies I have answers. I mean, I can always make up an answer, but it's probably just made up. So, but thoughts or comments or?
Well, I think it was very, it rang true for me, okay, listening to you in many aspects, because particularly when you were talking about as a grandparent and wanting to interfere or say something about how your son and your daughter-in-law were raising their children. I mean, I can relate that to my mother, and how she wouldn't say anything, but she might mention it after they left, you know, then it might come up, but she didn't say anything at the time, you know, to interfere and all with what they were doing, because she recognized that this was their life, it was their responsibility, and they could raise their children however they wanted.
Their journey, their dog, right?
Yeah. So,
oh my gosh, that's one of the hardest.
Yeah, that really rang true. So I could relate to that definitely.
So I will turn it back over to you,
You
Kathleen.
have universal wisdom is what it comes to, it total amounts to.
Yes.
All these differences of religion, they're all are trying, but they have found other aspects function better.
Yes.
And when they find, like you pointed out, that what is bias or discrimination, it's all the point that we're all here at a certain level of learning and wisdom. And as we learn these levels of wisdom, we calm down, and who is a thief or who is angry at somebody, figure out what is the things that drives him and what makes him good, and find him a society or a place where he can function.
Yes.
Like black people around here, we find that no longer they are refusing to be considered stupid or ignorant. For 200 years in this country, they refused to educate these people. Now that the people are getting educated, they're getting their PhDs, masters, and their bachelor's degree, and they're not stepping back. They're expecting you to. You show them respect, and they'll show equal amount or better cooperation back.
Yeah.
So
We're all
everything
one.
is here.
Yeah.
It's going for everything.
Yep.
And basically, people were afraid to do things. Communism was supposed to be a socialism event, but it got ahead in the control of these hands that for 4,000 years were warriors in controlling everybody and didn't want anybody to be educated. But the whole thing, I think, like Essenes, that particular principle has been operating through every part of this world, and learn these things, like South Africa.
I love that, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, it's all there.
That's
It's all
right.
at the core of
Doesn't
everything.
matter where you're coming from,
Yeah.
it's there.
Yeah.
You can go down to Australia, you can go to England, you can go just any place, and how hard are they trying to cooperate and to do things right?
Yeah.
And it exposes forth. And this thing here is also a thing to our society. because it's going into high details, technology, and what they would call mafia is what this President Trump is going to force these people to let go of. And nobody is admitting who they are. But
all right, well, hang on, because we're not going to go politically. I don't think I can handle it.
It's just all these things there. We're going to string forth the view that's doing with love and wisdom and truth. Things they will not bother you, and you can literally you can speak your truth. The two of these people are put the idea, and you're going to create a action. Say love everybody, or I want my chair, or whatever else. It will manifest. I've been reading a bunch of metaphysical books. I got like 2,000 at home.
Oh my gosh!
It's getting to this point to me. Look what you buy, and don't buy something expensive. You don't have to. If you buy some lesser product, that's better too. So it all works together.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. So I'm a little hard to hear, so I missed by half a minute what you said, but I was reading on that thing there. I got it.
Okay.
So
Good.
Towards unity and towards cooperation and building.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Theosophy was built upon that.
Yes, it was. It was.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
Well, thanks, Barbara, and if anybody has anything else to contribute, let's end with, yes.
I just want to say I really like your traffic example.
Oh.
When one of my children was learning to drive, they spent a whole driver's ed class in a team building cooperative trust activity. And I thought, what on earth? And I said, why did you do that? And he said, well, driving is the biggest act of cooperation there is in society.
That's right.
And I thought, yeah, it really is a wonder with all the cars out there,
That's right.
how few accidents really there
That's
are,
right.
considering the potential. And if everyone considers it an opportunity for cooperation, there would be many less.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, talk about a sense of cooperation. When I was in India, the traffic was unbelievable. There were 3 lanes, but there were 6 to 8 vehicles, people across in that 3 lanes. And I thought, and no road rage. I never saw road rage.
Oh, wow.
And I couldn't believe it. And my friend Nancy said, it's like a school of fish. You have all of these fish all together, but they all seem to just know how to get in and out without running over each other. I did spend a lot of time closing my eyes, but it is. It's cooperation.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for the beautiful talk, and it's a lot of food for thought. So now I'm going to go home and really think about all this stuff. I just hope I can remember, and if not, I'll look on YouTube, right?
That's right. I think that's what they're going to
That's
put.
right.
Yeah.
It'll be on YouTube. That's correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan, for doing that.